The Friday before everything fell apart, I was sitting in my car in the parking garage at work, eating a granola bar for dinner because I'd missed lunch again, trying to remember if I paid the HOA fee or just thought about paying it. I had. Of course I had. I always did. That's the thing about me that nobody in my family ever really understood. Or maybe they understood it perfectly and just decided not to care. I am the kind of person who handles things. I make a list. I work the list. I don't complain about the list. My mom used to say that about me when I was little, like it was a compliment. That one, she'd tell her friends at church, nodding in my direction, she doesn't give me a lick of trouble. And I'd stand there feeling proud of myself for being easy, for being low maintenance, for not needing anything. Funny how that becomes the thing that gets used against you. I'm a physical therapist. I've been working at a rehab clinic in Phoenix for 6 years and I do okay. Not rich, but stable, which in my family might as well be the same thing. I bought my house at 28, which felt like the most adult thing I'd ever done, and also the most terrifying. A 3-bedroom craftsman in a quiet neighborhood near the clinic with a front porch I always meant to put furniture on and a backyard the previous owners had kept gorgeous. I signed the papers on a Tuesday afternoon and cried in the parking lot of the title company because my dad had passed 2 years before and he was the one who'd always told me to buy, don't rent. Equity is how regular people build something. So I bought. What I didn't plan on, what I genuinely did not see coming, even though looking back the signs were all there, was that within 18 months my family would be living in my house with me and within 3 years they would try to push me out of it entirely. Let me back up. My mom has never been particularly financially careful. That's not a criticism, it's just a fact. She grew up with nothing and then she had something and she spent it like it might disappear, which I think is its own kind of trauma that I only started understanding in my late 20s. When my dad was alive, he balanced her out, more or less. After he passed, things got unsteady fast. She wasn't reckless exactly, just untethered. Like someone had cut the rope and she was drifting and didn't want to admit it. My brother, who is 4 years older than me, had just moved back to Phoenix after a stint in Denver that he described as a career pivot, and what our aunt described as getting fired and running home. He was 34, charming, loud, the kind of guy who walks into a room and immediately starts explaining things he doesn't fully understand. My mom adored him in that specific way some mothers adore their sons, completely, uncritically, with a blind spot the size of a billboard. He could do no wrong. When he did wrong, it was someone else's context, someone else's fault, someone else's failure to appreciate him properly. He moved in with her first. That was fine, I thought, temporary. Then I started noticing things when I came over for Sunday dinners, the mail piling up. A second notice from the utility company on the counter, my mom brushing off questions with, "Oh, it's all handled. Stop worrying." She looked tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. I asked her directly one Sunday in March. Just the two of us in the kitchen, her washing dishes, me drying. "Mom, what's going on with the mortgage?" She didn't answer for a long moment. Just kept washing. Then she said, "I might be a little behind." A little behind turned out to be 4 months. I won't go through the full breakdown of what happened next because it's not what this story is about, but the short version is, I paid it. I worked out a plan with the lender, I covered the arrears, and I sat down with my mom and had the conversation about her moving in with me. My house was bigger, my neighborhood was safer, she could save on rent, and though I didn't say this out loud, I could keep an eye on things. My brother came with her. That part I didn't exactly agree to, but my mom had said we from the beginning, and I'd been too focused on solving the immediate problem to push back on the pronoun. So there were 3 of us, and it was fine for a while. Genuinely fine. My mom cooked sometimes. She took care of the plants I always forgot to water. She made the house feel lived in a way that I realized, quietly, I had missed. My brother found some work. Consulting, he called it. Though the hours seemed flexible in a way that real consulting jobs usually aren't. He paid a little toward groceries, not rent, just groceries, when he remembered. I paid the mortgage, I paid the property taxes, I paid the homeowner's insurance, I paid the utilities. I didn't bring this up. It was my house and those were my bills, and I had agreed implicitly to this arrangement. I wasn't keeping score. Except somewhere along the way, without my noticing, the power in the house shifted, and I don't mean in any dramatic way. I mean in the slow, ambient way that happens when you're the one going to work every morning and coming home every evening and asking how was everyone's day, and nobody ever asks about yours. My mom started making decisions about the house, rearranging furniture, buying things for the kitchen, without mentioning it to me first. My brother started treating the living room like his personal office, his stuff spread across the coffee table, his schedule setting the rhythm of the household. I told myself it was fine, they needed stability, I could give them that. I was good at being the scaffolding, standing behind everything, holding it up, invisible by design. The first real warning sign came about 8 months after they moved in, when my brother got offered a position at a company in Scottsdale. Regional sales manager, he said. He'd be making good money, real money. I was genuinely happy for him, said so, meant it, hugged him when he told us at dinner. He did not move out. It's just smart to stay put while he gets established, my mom said when I asked about it, casually, a few weeks later. No sense paying rent when he has a perfectly good room here. A perfectly good room in my house. I nodded and let it go. The second warning sign was smaller but stuck with me longer. I came home one evening after a particularly brutal day. I'd had a patient fall during a session. Nobody hurt but paperwork everywhere, and my nerves completely shot. And I found my mom and my brother at the kitchen table with a real estate brochure, not looking at properties to buy, looking at properties in the neighborhood. Around us, comparable homes. What's that? I asked, setting my bag down. My mom glanced up. Oh, your brother was just curious about what houses are going for around here. My brother smiled at me. This is a great neighborhood, Mel. You did good picking this place. Mel, short for Melanie. My name, for the record, since we're here. I looked at the brochure for another second and then went upstairs to change out of my work clothes. I told myself I was being paranoid. People look at real estate listings all the time. It doesn't mean anything. I should have trusted that feeling. I should have asked more questions right then. But I was tired and I wanted dinner and I had a patient evaluation to prep for in the morning. I let it go. The conversation that changed everything happened on a Saturday afternoon in October. I was in my home office catching up on documentation. The part of my job that follows me home always. When my mom knocked and came in and sat down in the chair across from my desk in a way that meant she'd been preparing what she was about to say. I want to talk to you about the sleeping arrangements, she said. I saved my work. I turned around. Okay. Your brother needs a proper workspace now that he's in this new role. He's having calls. He needs to look professional. She paused. His room is smaller. Your room is bigger. I waited for the rest of the sentence, the part where she'd explain why this was relevant to me. We think it would make more sense, she continued, for you to switch rooms with him. Take his room. Let him have yours. I sat with that for a moment. I want to be precise about what I felt in those 5 seconds, because it wasn't just surprise. It was a very specific kind of realization. The realization that you've been misreading a situation for months and the person across from you has been reading it very differently, and the gap between those two readings is enormous, and you are only just now seeing it. She thought she was asking me to switch bedrooms, but what she was actually revealing was that she thought of this house the way she thought of every place she'd ever lived in, as something to be managed by whoever was most present, most vocal, most willing to assert themselves. She had been here, asserting herself for almost 2 years, and in her mind, without anyone saying it out loud, the balance had shifted. Mom, I said, that's my room. I know it is, honey, but you're barely there. You leave before 7, and you're not back until… It's my room, I said again, because it's my house. She smiled at me patiently, the way you smile at someone who's being unnecessarily technical. I know. But we're all living here together and it just makes sense. I'm not switching rooms. Her expression changed, not dramatically, just a small tightening, a reassessment. "I think you're being a little selfish," she said. "Your brother is trying to build something." I didn't say anything to that. I turned back to my computer. She left. I heard her talking to my brother downstairs. Their voices were low, but I could hear the shape of the conversation. The rhythm of it, two people strategizing together. That night I had a choice to make. I could confront it directly, right then, in whatever heated version that would become. Or I could wait, be deliberate, handle it the way I handle things. Make a list, work the list. I chose to wait. Not because I was passive, because I wanted to be precise. The next 2 weeks were uncomfortable in that quiet, domestic way that's somehow harder than open conflict. My mum was polite to me, but with a new coolness to it, a slight withdrawal of warmth that I recognized as punishment. My brother was overly cheerful in a way that felt performative. Things that had been casual and shared, the morning coffee routine, the Sunday grocery run, became slightly formal. I was being managed. Then one Tuesday I came home from work, and there was a man I didn't recognize measuring the hallway. I stopped in the doorway. "Can I help you?" "Tape and texture," he said, not looking up. "Started in the south bedroom, moving through here next." I felt something cold settle in my chest. I thanked him and walked upstairs. The door to my room was open. There were paint swatches taped to my wall, a small drop cloth on the floor. I called my mum from my room. She answered on the second ring. "Why is there a contractor in my house?" I asked. "Oh, we're just freshening up your brother's room," she said, "since he's moving in." "Into which room?" A pause. "The larger one, Melanie. We talked about this." "I told you no." "Well, your brother I need you to tell him to stop," I said. "I need you to call that man upstairs and tell him to pack up his equipment and leave, today." Silence. "Mom." "You're being very difficult about this," she said. I hung up. I went downstairs and I told the contractor, as politely as I could, that there was a misunderstanding about the scope of work and he'd need to come back after I'd had a chance to sort out the authorization. He was perfectly nice about it. He packed up, left a card, was out of the house within 15 minutes. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and I opened my laptop and I called my attorney. I want to explain why I have a real estate attorney, because people find that surprising. I bought my house with money I'd saved for 5 years and I did it on my own, and I was terrified of making a mistake. So I hired a lawyer to walk me through the title search and closing documents, and I just kept paying her quarterly retainer afterward because it made me feel less alone in the whole thing. Best $60 a month I've ever spent. Her name is irrelevant. What's relevant is that she picked up, she listened to the 2-minute version of what was happening, and then she said, "You need to document everything, and we need to talk about how clear they are, or aren't, on who holds title." That question, that's what clarified everything. Because here's what I hadn't thought about carefully enough. My mom and my brother had been living in my house for almost 2 years. They'd rearranged furniture, made decisions, invited contractors, all the behavioral signals of homeownership. And nowhere in that 2 years had I sat them down with a piece of paper and said, "This is my name on the deed." I thought it was obvious. It was not obvious to them in any way that mattered. My attorney told me what I needed to do. I needed to send a formal notice, not a family conversation, a legal document establishing clearly that I was the sole owner of the property and that their continued residence was at my discretion. We also needed to address the question of whether their living there had created any kind of tenancy rights, however informal. In Arizona, if someone lives somewhere long enough without a formal agreement, things can get complicated. We were right at the edge of complicated. I didn't say anything to my mom or my brother for the rest of that week. I went to work. I came home. I ate dinner. I was civil. They seemed to think the contractor situation had blown over, that I'd been upset and now I wasn't, that we'd returned to normal. We had not returned to normal. On Thursday, I sat at my desk while they watched TV downstairs and I read through the documents my attorney had prepared. A formal notice of ownership. A request to establish a rental agreement or vacate. A 60-day timeline, which was more generous than legally required but felt like the right amount of human decency. I printed 3 copies. On Friday evening, my mom made the mistake of bringing it up again at dinner, casually, slipping it into conversation between talking about the weather and whether we needed more dish soap. I was thinking we could move the furniture this weekend, she said, looking at her plate. Start the transition. I set down my fork. My brother looked up. He'd been quieter than usual the last few days, watchful. I need to tell you both something, I said. My mom smiled the patient smile. Melanie, we've been over. This house is mine, I said. Not ours. Mine, I said. Not ours. My name. My name is the only name on the deed. I've held the mortgage since I bought it. I've paid every month without exception. I pay the taxes and the insurance and every utility bill in this house. My brother opened his mouth. I'm not finished, I said. He closed it. I love you both. You know that. But I need you to understand clearly that the decisions about this house are mine. Repainting rooms, rearranging furniture, inviting contractors. None of that happens without my say. And switching bedrooms is not happening. My mom set down her fork. She looked at me for a long moment with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something between hurt and calculation. You sound very lawyerly, she said finally. I spoke to my attorney, I said. I have documentation of my ownership and we've drafted a formal tenancy agreement for me to offer you both. It outlines what you'd pay in rent. Below market rate, but rent. And what the house rules are going forward. Or I understand if you'd prefer to find your own place. I've given a 60-day window either way. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever heard in that house. My brother recovered first, which didn't surprise me. Are you serious right now? He said. Not a question. A statement of disbelief, low and sharp. I'm completely serious. You're charging us rent. In your own mother's. He stopped, started again, after everything she's done for you. I looked at him steadily. What has she done for me, specifically, that relates to this house? He didn't have an answer for that. My mum hadn't said anything. She was still looking at me, and I realized after a moment that what I was seeing on her face wasn't anger. It was shame. The particular shame of someone who has pushed past a boundary they knew was there and gotten caught doing it. She had known, on some level, that this house was mine. She had known, and she had slowly started behaving as if that fact didn't apply to her. And now I was making it apply again. Mom, I said more gently, I want you here, but I need it to be on honest terms. She pressed her lips together, didn't respond. My brother pushed his chair back and left the table. I heard him go upstairs. I heard his door, the smaller one, his original room, close harder than necessary. My mom and I sat there for a few minutes. The food got cold. I didn't realize, she said finally, quietly, that you'd kept track of all of it. I haven't been keeping score, I told her. I just also didn't stop being the owner. She nodded, slow, small, then she picked up her fork and started eating again. That was the whole confrontation. No screaming, no ultimatums delivered through tears, just a conversation at a dinner table where the actual facts of our situation finally got said out loud. My brother left within 3 weeks. I don't think he ever seriously considered signing the tenancy agreement. The rent I'd quoted was $800 a month, genuinely below anything he'd find in Phoenix, but it meant accountability, and I think he'd built his entire sense of the situation on the absence of that. He moved into an apartment in Tempe with a friend from his new job. He texted me the day he moved out. This wasn't necessary. I didn't respond. My mom stayed. She signed the tenancy agreement. She pays her portion of rent every first of the month, has never once been late, and seems, I say this carefully, trying to be honest, to be relieved. Like a structure she didn't know she needed was finally put in place. She has her room, which is genuinely comfortable. She gardens. She still cooks sometimes and leaves meals in the fridge with little notes on them. We have coffee on the porch Sunday mornings and we talk about everything except the thing that happened, which I think might be the most we can do for now. The front porch, by the way, has furniture on it now. I finally bought chairs. 2 of them, good ones, with cushions, about a month after everything settled out. I sat in one the first morning they arrived and drank my coffee and looked at the neighborhood and thought about my dad who told me to buy, not rent, who told me equity is how regular people build something. I built something. I almost let it get taken from me, not through force, but through familiarity. Through being so used to being the scaffolding that I forgot I was also the structure. I know that now. I won't forget it again. I think about the contractor a lot. Not because of what he did, he was just a guy doing a job someone hired him for, but because of how I felt standing in my own doorway watching a stranger measure my hallway. That specific feeling of unreality. Like I'd walked into a house that looked exactly like mine, but where the rules had quietly been rewritten while I wasn't paying attention. That's what happens when you confuse being generous with being invisible. I had given my mom and my brother something real, stability, safety, a place to land, and somewhere in the process I had made myself so easy to overlook that they stopped seeing me as the person who made all of it possible. That's not their failure entirely. It was mine too. I had never once sat down and said, clearly, out loud, this is what I have, this is what I've done, and this is where the line is. I thought the facts spoke for themselves. They don't. They never do. What I know now is that doing the right thing, quietly paying the mortgage, keeping the lights on, not complaining, is only half of it. The other half is having the clarity to understand what you've built and the willingness to say so when it matters. That's not arrogance, it's honesty. My dad would have called it just knowing what you're worth, which sounds simple, until the moment someone tests it. There's a version of this story where I stay quiet, where I switch rooms, swallow my frustration, tell myself I'm keeping the peace. I know that version because I almost lived it, and I know what it costs, not just in square footage but in something harder to name, the slow erosion of knowing who you are in your own life. What pulled me back wasn't anger, it was thinking carefully about cause and effect, about the fact that every time I had let something slide, the brochure on the kitchen table, my brother not moving out after the job, the furniture rearrangements I never mentioned, I had taught everyone around me that sliding was acceptable. The outcome I was living in was a direct result of 100 small decisions I had made to avoid discomfort. Understanding that wasn't about blame. It was about finally seeing the mechanism clearly enough to change it. So I changed it. Not dramatically, not cruelly. I made a list and I worked the list. I called my attorney. I printed the documents. I sat at the dinner table. And I said the true thing in a steady voice. My mom is still here. She gardens. She leaves meals in the fridge with little notes. We drink coffee on the porch on Sunday mornings, and the conversation is easy in a way it wasn't before, because we both know exactly what this is now. There's a kind of peace in that clarity that I didn't expect. Honesty turned out to be more of a foundation than silence ever was. The chairs on that front porch took me 3 years to buy. I kept thinking I'd get to it eventually, and then eventually kept not coming. The week after everything settled out, I ordered them same day. Sat in one the next morning with my coffee and thought, I built this. I almost let it go. I won't forget again.